Hello, 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 everyone. This is Rachel Kirkland here, the Modern Shaman, and thanks for being with us for another YouTube question of the week. If you are new to this channel, then I always say welcome. Thanks for being here, and feel free to subscribe, to like, to comment, to hit that bell so you'll get notified anytime I do a new YouTube video. It always lets you know, and typically those are on Fridays. I try to do a new release once a week on Fridays. That's my commitment that I have made. I don't always get to it, but I try to get to that commitment for you guys. It's just a love offering to share in this way, and just to open up to this sense of free content, let you guys know what's out there. And I know a lot of people really learn and grow in this way at their own pace. So if that's you and you vibe with what we're doing, feel free to become a part of this community and subscribe. And also, those of you guys that have been a part of this community forever, for these many years that I've been making these videos, thank you for being a part of this. This is a shared energy, and there's so many of you guys that I feel like help create the community energy that's supported and just are tried and true and strong with your sense of loyalty. So thank you for being a part of this. All right, on to the question for the day, or for the week. It says, "Hi Rachel, thank you so much for your videos. I've watched them over and over again and I always get something new out of it." I love that. It's true. All multidimensional information is like that. It's like you can listen to it one time, and because of your resonance, you're syncing up and you're hearing particular things. You'll listen to the same content again, and because you're at a completely different vibrational state, the information will hit you completely different. You'll be like, I didn't even hear that last time. How did I not pick that up? It's because you're in a different resonance, and the multidimensional aspect of the information is communicating to you at all points on where you're syncing up. So I love it. I love that. Okay, on with the question. My question is about my twin flame. When I'm connecting with his higher self in meditations and such, I get such alignment and synchronicities and positive messages. But in our day-to-day interaction, he can be very jealous, controlling, and insecure to the point that I want to run away. The connection confuses me. I feel like there is a higher purpose, and his higher self is always nudging me on in this relationship. And yet, the day-to-day interaction, like I said, feels draining and unsupportive. Can you give me some insight? Great question. Okay, so first I'm gonna use those terms 3D and 5D, but they're just terms. Don't get caught up in it. They don't have inherent meaning that have to be used and language that way. I'm just gonna use them as a little wrapping, just for the sake of this video, to clarify and give an identifiable point to 3D being the material, the human aspect of a person. And all people have it. If we're living in a human body and we're still manifesting a form that is 3D, then we have aspects to ourself that still have to be progressed through in the 3D realm. Make no mistake, if we're still here, we're still manifested as a human, then we still have stuff to do. Otherwise, we would have transfigured into light in the rainbow body, all right? And some people have, right? So that component is the 3D aspect. And typically these are very primal navigational learning lessons, right? And you talked about it: jealousy, control, greed, insecurity, these primal aspects of our humanity that are very grainy, right? They're like very frictional. A lot of times there's a lot of drama energy involved in them, like a telenovela, or something where the relationship components are just like jealousy or cheating or lying or manipulation. They're just these intense energies in the living, in polaric experience. Remember, if we're in the 3D, this dynamic that I'm using this word, that type of learning is very polaric, bipolar, meaning it flashes both sides, and we learn from this huge swinging spectrum, okay? So a lot of our experiences feel very dramatic when they're in that realm, when they're dealing with those type of primal issues. And a lot of times they're sharp, they cut really deep, they cut really hard, they're emotionally difficult, they're really straining type of growth. All right, we all have to go through it in this or some other human incarnation if we're on this spectrum of evolution for our soul and we chose an incarnation here on earth. So in that realm, the person as they're manifested and that the form and the expression that their energy takes on, it can at times feel very coarse and sharp, like I said. But we also have access to this, the way I'm going to use the language is 5D, which would be the higher aspect of the self. And it's, don't get caught up in the dimension. It's not like it actually resides just in the 5th dimension. There are many multidimensional layers to that. I'm just using it as a definable term so we have a sense of understanding and clarity on it. And this is where you are in your highest vibrational state, where you feel aligned, where you are in sync with the universe and synchronicities are happening, like you said, and they're giving you all of this positive affirmation of love and light and alignment. And it's the highest and best version of them, their higher self, their angelic self, their celestial form. And especially if you're open to your psychic gifts, and I think you probably are if you're tuned into this channel, you may have access to seeing these aspects of them. However, if there is not integration, that's what I'm all about, if there's not integration of these components, then you can be dealing with a big swing in the way that the relationship manifests and the way that it shows up in the components of the relationship. So integration is key. What I see a lot of with clients, and it's funny that you brought this up because I think I had 2 or 3 sessions this week that dealt with relational components or twin flame components that in the reality and the experiential relationship were not walking the walk or talking the talk. They were talking the talk but not walking the walk, and the actions did not line up with the 5D vibrational self, and so they were having to deal with this 3D and wondering what to do in that realm. So I know that your question is hitting a lot of energy with a lot of people right now because I had it come up with clients just this week. There's resonance there. So this issue with integration, the thing is that when we as individuals are working on ourselves, we're clearing our own chakras, which include all of the emotional components of our body, which include the spiritual components of the body. We're up leveling and working on our stuff. We're working on the primal issues that we have, and we're processing them within our own system, within our own life, and making actionable energy towards them. Not passive, but actionable energy forward, meaning noticing our patterns, noticing our own inner talk, working through our fears, our triggers. When we're doing this, then we are up leveling in our own system, right? Our own chakra system, our energetic organs that sustain our basic life force energy, our soul body too. And so we're vibrationally moving upward. Now, when we're in a relational component, if they are doing the same thing within their own chakra system and their own electromagnetic field, which is the auric field created by the spin of the chakras, then everything's feeding each other. And there is a healthy dynamic of kind of these circuits of energy that feed, and you're gonna feel great, and they almost like create sparks off of one another, and you're getting inspiration from your connection together, and it's just love and sparks and bliss, okay? That's a healthy circuit. But the relational component, just like we have our own system, our own chakra system, our own electromagnetic field, which kind of looks like this cellular membrane, there's an actual energy and frequency to it, that we're walking around in, and it's creating our sense of the way that we see the world. We're projecting and seeing it holographically through this space. The relational component has that too. You create your own relational energetic chakra system in the way and the health that you're feeding to each other, and these cords are feeding one another, supporting one another. Now, when that's a healthy dynamic, it's freaking awesome. okay? And you're growing and you're evolving at a pace that just seems phenomenal because you're able to spin each other faster to create those electromagnetic sparks energetically, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But at times, if someone in that partnership, in the cell, the cumulative cell, as if you're two electrons in this like nucleus, you're part of this molecular structure of the, sorry, there's a science to it, there just is. The current that's flowing between you creates a membrane or a sense of space for the two of you to live and breathe in. This is how the relationship grows. So it's nurturing it almost like a child, except you're living in it as well. You're a part of what you're creating and helping to create as that third energy, that system that you're both creating. Now, if one of you is not doing their own work, is not clean and clear and working through the process, then what can happen is that membrane, instead of feeling fully supportive and functional, can become depleted and can almost be like an energetic vampire, and those cords can be very draining on one of the persons, okay? And so at those times, there's a sense of something that could be very beautiful in energy. Maybe you're giving, and you're a very giving person and you're nurturing. And so those aspects are present in the sphere of what you're creating together, the relational auric field. And in that auric field, you're giving, maybe they lost a job and so you're helping and you're supporting them with money. But if it gets dysfunctional, an example would be that instead of feeling like they're grateful and they're helping you out in other energetic ways that feels like it balances the energetic auric field, they may be complaining and they may turn it into resentment, and it starts to feel like all that you're giving has a sense of enabling the dysfunction. And so in those areas, there's a sense of them not stepping into their own supportive energy, their own self-sufficient auric field, and they start pulling on you, depending on you, feeding on the relational component that completely breaks down your sense of giving from this space. So you're giving and nurturing, and then instead of going out and looking for a job, they start just needing money, more money from you, needing more money from you, needing more money from you, or these types of things. And it pulls into the relationship. Now I'm using that as an example, but it would work the same with a sense of jealousy or control. If they are not dealing with their own personal insecurities of abandonment or loss or fears, therefore, in that root chakra, then it may show up like this in the relational component. Now, when it's healthy, you have a sense of still sustaining your own energetic field that feels balanced, that feels like I have peace with my interactions with other people, and it's not draining from you. And you're feeding that person, but you're also feeding yourself. And there's this ease and flow to it. When it gets dysfunctional, if that's a block and it's not dealt with in their own working field, in their own system, in their own primal issues that they're having to work through, then they start to become very codependent, and you can't go out with people because you can't go out and see your friends because that's going to take away from our relationship, or so they start pulling, and the energy becomes off balance and draining. And the membrane itself no longer is sustaining the people, it's actually bringing them down in vibrational frequency. Okay, it happens all the time. So if you're relating to something that I'm saying, it's not uncommon. It doesn't mean it's a horrible relationship. It just means it's gonna take a sense of awareness and wisdom to what is truly going on all levels, okay? I also have a lot of people ask me when it comes to twin flame, I'll get a little bit into that, about their personal ascension, and they say, well, if I'm ascending and I'm at this high vibrational state, will that trigger and mirror my partner to go through the ascension as well? And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there about this, okay? There is an aspect of mirroring when it comes to vibration that can sometimes get us in trouble. And let me explain that. So what happens is when you are in a higher vibrational state, you're always mirroring or seeing reflected back to you the vibrational state that you're experiencing. So you see the best in that person. You don't see the dysfunction. You're working through your stuff, so you're seeing all these things they're working through. You're seeing all the wonderful things. You're in a high vibrational state. It's almost like you miss it, okay? And I see this all the time as well. They're like, I just completely didn't even notice the lies. I completely didn't even notice the fact that he was drunk every time we were together. He was high every time I didn't even notice. It's like it wasn't even on my vibrational frequency. And that is actually true, because you're in such a space of alignment that you're seeing all the alignment that is present in that person. And there are aspects of us that are always moving upward and doing better. So those parts are present and there, and they're accessible, and a lot of times we will see those beautiful things mirror back to us. However, if the day-to-day interaction or the core vibrational level is not sustainable for them, meaning they're not living the actionable energy. So like when I say actionable energy, it's the doing. It's like, what are their actions saying? Okay. When it comes to a sense of ascension, a lot of people know exactly what to say. They know the right words. They know what you want to hear. And they're speaking in a level that's talking the talk. Okay, but actions are what creates momentum when it comes to manifestation. They're the trajectory, the momentum forward. Someone's outside the office honking. So they're the momentum forward. So when the actions aren't matched up, then there's no integration into the 3D, and you cannot ignore the 3D part, because this is where we still live and breathe and have our sense of manifesting, right? It's what we experience. It's a tangible aspect of our life. It's the house we live in, the money that functions as a system that supports us. It's the material food we consume. It's the sexual part of the relationship. There's a tangible aspect to things that we function within, all right? So when you are ascending and your twin flame is not, or they are not dealing with aspects of life, or they're not evolving in terms of their spiritual growth, and they're just kind of living in the old patterns, or they're choosing to stay in that vibrational state, your sense of ascension does not cross over in their free will. Their free will always hold dominant in terms of what they experience. So they may experience that relational component very different. And then they look at you and they're like, well, why is it so easy for you? And they almost get angry at you for your ascension. There's a sense of like, well, you know, it's just so easy for you, or you're just always in this high, wonderful place. There's a sense of non-matching with their actions versus their words, and it doesn't sync up, okay? And they will have to go through that process independently in terms of their own ascension. You can feed and nurture the nucleus of this relational auric field that's created together, yes, but if you were the only one that's sustaining that, it drains your energy field instead of supporting it. Okay, because it's supporting two people. It's just like when a woman is harboring a child and the food that they eat is supporting them as well as their child. They're having to intake a lot more calories than normal. So same on the energetic level, when you are creating a relational field, and if you're the only one that's putting food in there, then it's not enough to sustain the two of you, all right? It needs to be, both of you need to be contributing on an energetic level that feels balanced. It doesn't mean you have to contribute in the same ways, but it needs to feel balanced, all right? Otherwise, part of it will become dysfunctional and will start to drain and lower and lower and lower the core vibrational frequency of that relational shield or field of energy. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I want to say about this with your question. I think I want to say one last thing about this, like, how do I deal with the two levels? I see this a lot with spiritual people, is that when we're in a high vibrational state and we are actively loving someone, we want the best for them, we have a sense of care and nurturing, but sometimes we can overlook the 3D of like what's the reality. And I'm not saying you need to focus on the negative here, but there is a real material component of it that you have to walk in, meaning the way that you parent together. Okay, if you have children together, the way that, like, how the money is fostered if you're in a relationship and you're living together. There's a component to the material aspects that needs to be validated and upheld. And oftentimes we overlook that and we think that has nothing to do with the spiritual. Let's just hold the spiritual component. And yet this is the trajectory that we move through. This is the realm our manifestations move through. They start in that higher vibrational form, but they manifest into the 3D. So if what they're showing in the 3D is not manifesting in alignment with the way that they're talking in the 5D, in that spiritual talk, then it is not integrated, meaning it is not actionable. There is no momentum. There's no momentum forward into what they're creating. All right. And you can't be naive to not noticing that. There's wisdom in noticing that and making wise decisions in what that person is manifesting and creating and living in. Okay. It's not a non-spiritual decision to take the material into consideration. It's part of the multidimensional realm of the relationship, and you're going to experience and have to interact and have to have peace and abundance on all levels. Do you see what I'm saying? So let it be integrated. Notice when it's not. And if you're constantly feeling like you're mostly dealing with him on this 3D level, that this is the truth of your day-to-day interaction, then you can always sustain that 5D interaction. You don't have to be with him as in an active relationship to still meditate and connect with his higher self. That is eternal. That's always available, right? But the reality of what you're dealing with in the 3D, there's only wisdom in looking at it from a multidimensional perspective and assessing in what ways you are energetically supporting and he is energetically supporting the relationship, and in what ways the dominant vibration or interaction is impacting you both. There's wisdom in that. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm going to cut it because I went overtime. I love you guys. We'll be back here next week.